Hi, everyone. My name is Deb Stockbridge. I'm a professor at Quincy College. This PowerPoint presentation is based on the 6th edition of Absolute C++ by Walter Savage, published in 2016 by Pearson Incorporated. This presentation is for the C++ programming class, but everyone is welcome to watch. In this presentation for Chapter 6, you're going to learn about classes. Classes are very similar to structures. The difference is that the functions are included in classes as well as the data members. Classes also distinguish between private members and public members of the class. Objects are created from the class which contain both data members and functions or operators. This encapsulation is an integral part of object-oriented programming. The slide shows the similarities and differences between structures and classes. Structures have data members, and classes have data members also, but they have functions too. In structures, all the members are public. In classes, some members are public and some members are private. Structures don't have any functions. Classes typically have functions. They typically have their data members be private and the functions would be public. So the similarities are that both group data, both definitions end with a semicolon, both access their data members with the dot operator, and parameters of either type can be passed by value or passed by reference. This slide shows an example of a class. Notice that the class ends with a semicolon, just like the structure ends. In a class, typically the data members are private and the functions are public. A private data member cannot be changed directly from outside the class. In order to change the private data member, the member functions of the class can be used. Usually, a class has a function named input, which will be able to change the private data members. Another typical function for a class is output, which outputs the values of the data members. Also notice that only the function prototype is included in the class definition. The definition of the function is written outside of the class. This slide also shows how to declare objects of the class. This slide shows how public member functions can be accessed. Notice that the private data members cannot be directly accessed. You cannot use, say, today.minute. The private data members can only be changed through class member functions. So the class here is time, and it has two public members, which is output and input. They're both void functions. And it has two private data members, hour and minute. On the right-hand side, they create two objects from the time class. One is called today and one is yesterday. To output whatever is stored in today, you say today, which is the object, dot output. You call the output function. If you want to change some of the private data members in the today object, you say today.input. And you can do the same thing for the yesterday object. This slide shows the function definition for input and output. So on the left, we have our class, which is time, and we have the two public functions, output and input. At the bottom on the left, we've created an object from the time class called today. On the right, we have the definitions of input and output. So for the input, we ask the user to enter the time in hours, and then that's assigned to today.hour. Now, this is within the function, which is a member of that class, so they are able to access the hour member variable by saying the object, which is today.hour. Then we have enter the minutes, and that's assigned to today.minute. Then for the output, we have the time is, and then whatever the time is, and the time.minute is whatever the minute is. All functions declared in the class must be defined outside of the class. The scope resolution operator instructs the compiler what class the function belongs to. So we have the dot operator. What the dot operator is used to is it specifies a member of a particular object. So we had the today object dot output. The output was a member of that class. And today is the object, and output is a member of the object today. So when you define a function outside of the class, you need to give the name of the class. So this is what a typical header would look like for your at the beginning of your definition. So it doesn't return anything. This is the name of the class that the function is from. That's the scope resolution operator, and then the member function is output. I feel that it's very important for you to understand the complete programs that are listed in the text. So I'm going to create a separate video for that. So I'm going to explain the day of year class. That's display 1.1. It's on lines 250, it's on pages 259 through 261 in your text. So you will need to have your book open to those pages because I'll be referring to the line numbers there. This slide shows three important concepts for object-oriented programming. The first one is encapsulation. So we do that with a class. We can encapsulate and put together data members and functions all together in the same class as one unit. The other one is data abstraction. That's how data is manipulated in the class. And it is would be like the function definition, which is not given to the user. That function definition is way outside of the class. They don't see that. All that a user sees when it looks at the class is the function prototype for that class. And the last one is information hiding. So these eventually, when you are taking advanced C++, you will learn that you can have the function definitions put into your own library space. So it is definitely not available for any user of your program. The class in C++ is an example of an abstract data type. It is a group of data values together with operations that can be performed on that data. Abstract because the users do not know the details. And I just copied this definition from Wikipedia. In computer science, an abstract data type is a mathematical model for data types defined by its behavior, which would be the functions, from the point of view of a user of the data, specifically in terms of possible values, possible operations on the data of that type, and the behavior of those operations. This slide shows the differences between the private data members and the public data members. And sometimes when you're defining a class, you might not know whether to make a data member private or public. So if you make it private, these members are usually variables. They are data that's going to be hidden from the user so that the user can't change those values, which is a key principle of object-oriented programming. But the data can be changed by using the member functions of that class. So in our example of our time class, the private data members were hour and minute. Public data members are usually functions. The user may use these functions. Now, the user is only given the function prototype, which says the data type it returns, the name of it, and the data type of the arguments. These member functions can change the private members of the class. In our example of time, input and was one of the functions that can change the data members. There are two basic types of functions, accessor functions and mutator functions. On the left has accessor functions do not change the data. So an example of an accessor function would be void output. All it is outputting the values. Looking to the right, examples of accessor functions, we had the output. It also might be a function called getData that all it does is retrieve the data. It doesn't change it at all. Going back to the left again, the mutator function does change data. An example would be the void input. That's where it would ask the user for the values for the data members and change them. On the right-hand side, the examples of the mutator functions, we have void set data, if they're going to set the data members to a certain value, and a void input, of course. A class can be thought of as having two parts. One part is the interface of the class. This would contain public member functions that are listed in the class as a function prototype. The other part would be the implementation. This is the part that only the programmer can see. It contains the definitions of the functions as well as the private data members. The details of the class are hidden from the user. So on the left, we have the interface. It's available for the user. The public member functions prototype are given, any comments that you have, and the actual class definition. The implementation is not available to the user. It contains the function definitions and any private data members.